Each user location has an administrator screen. This screen has control over the different users and their respective passwords to get into the system. To add new users or change the administrator's password, go to the administrator icon, identify yourself as administrator, enter your password, which can be changed if desired. The password from the factory will be preset to Medspira 123. Log in and come to the screen where several options can be seen. One is the ability to modify the Bluetooth connection by tapping the Bluetooth icon. It is preset at the factory and you shouldn't need to do this. Verify that the fob is working properly by pressing the power button on the fob and doing a connection test by tapping the connection test screen. You will see a quick display to confirm that a connection has been established, and then it will shut itself off. This process is to verify that the fob is working. The next area is security. This is where a new user will be added. Let's begin the process of adding a new user. You may choose any name or ID for a new user. Simply enter the information in the ID section. Each user will have their own password. Once the password is entered, save the information as a new user. Along with establishing a new user, you can also reset your on-site administrator password at any time by tapping this icon. Again, the default administrator password will be Medspira 123. The next function to discuss is activity. The activity icon will bring you to the different levels of the software that are available to you. The tablet PC comes with two software areas that are activated initially. One is the diagnostic. This allows you to do the actual test and also view reports. There is also an icon that you can choose for reviewing reports directly before the interpretation phase of the examination. This is if you have loaded the software onto any Windows 7 or Windows 8 PC, but not connected to the mCompass fob. You may opt for Report Viewing from this screen, or simply turn off this option. This is also the area where more compatibilities and software can be added to the system in the future and could be accessed. Once you have confirmed your Bluetooth connection, added new users, you may go back to the diagnostic area at this time. Confirm that you wish to log out of this screen, and it will take you back to the main home screen. This has been a review of the administration functions that are available as the on-site system administrator. Let's begin the diagnostic manometry testing of the system. You enter it by clicking the icon on the main screen. Here is where you would enter your username and password. After tapping Login, it will bring you to the Patient Data screen. Instructions to this screen are located at the top as shown here. The only field that is required is the Patient ID field. The rest is optional, but most clinics would be entering this information. The date is automatically entered. If for any reason you need to enter a different date, you may do so manually. The Patient ID field is then entered. You may use any combination of letters or numbers in keeping with your particular clinic's standards. The next entry field, also optional, is the patient's first name, the middle initial, and then the patient's last name. Enter the sex of the patient. And now enter the patient's date of birth. The date of birth can be done by a pull-down menu. By selecting the pull-down menu and tapping twice on the year, you can navigate to the proper year. Make the choices for both the month and then the day, and the date of birth will be entered in that field. The next field is the indication. There is a pull-down menu. If there's already an indication in place, you may simply tap Enter. You may also enter a new indication in that field. Once the information is entered, it will be there in the pull-down menu going forward. The next field is Physician Name. Again, you may use the pull-down menu to choose an existing name or enter a new physician's name. The next field is the Referring Physician. And finally is the Test Operator. This is the clinician that is actually performing the test. Again, the only required field is the Patient ID field. The rest is optional. Once you've completed that section, tap the Next arrow in the lower right corner of the screen. This will bring you to the setup screen for the mCompass manometer, which is referred to as a fob. It's the handheld manometer that is used in conjunction with the disposable catheter. It is wireless, so there are no direct connections to the tablet PC. Follow the instructions at the top of the screen to activate and test the fob. The first step is to turn on the Power On button on the fob. The fob will go through its own self-diagnostic check. You'll see a series of lights turning on and off. Once that check is completed, you will see that the On button will be green, the Battery button will be green, and the Bluetooth symbol will be flashing a blue LED. At that point, tap the Connect Bluetooth button to the left of the image of the fob. The Bluetooth light will stop flashing, which indicates that it is now connected and that you have paired the system together to run. Now tap Next to take you to the screen to begin setup of the disposable catheter and connect it to the handheld manometer or fob. There are two connections that need to be made. The first is the white universal anal canal connector that has 4 ports. These are pneumatic connectors and they are keyed and can only be inserted in alignment with the arrows on the disposable catheter, which is aligned with the arrow on the top of the fob. Assuring proper alignment and connection assures that the orientation of the measurement balloons is always the same. The connection, when firmly and properly seated, will create a pneumatic seal. The next connection is the 3-inch long extension tube. One end of the tube connects to the 4-way stopcock that's part of the catheter. The other end is connected to the single lure connector, located on the front of the fob next to the anal canal measurement balloon port. Once you have made both connections, tap the Fob Connected button and verify that the connections are correct and properly sealed. As you follow the instructions at the top of the screen, you will see that it says to turn the lever on the fob to position 2. There is a gray lever on the side of the fob. During setup and use, this lever will have 3 positions. Position 1 is in the down position. Position 2, as shown in this screen, is in the up position. And position 3 is forward, facing the catheter position. The instructions will indicate that it is now time to prime the system. You will need to turn the lever to position 2 as indicated. The software will automatically indicate that you have done so. Now you need to prime the system with 3 cc's of air. As the graphic indicates, you should utilize the provided 5mm syringe loaded with 3 cc's of air. Connect it to the top of the priming port, which is located under the cover on the top of the fob. You will then press 3 cc's of air into the fob and then into the catheter. You will notice that the 4 channels of the measurement balloons on the catheter on the distal end will inflate and become firm. The syringe, while holding the plunger down, is removed from the fob. As the instructions indicate, you then now move the lever to position 3, and now you are ready to do a complete test. It is important to note that the 4 anal canal balloons won't necessarily be as firm as when they were first injected with the 3 cc's of air because they equalize when the syringe is removed, but they will have air pressure in them. By clicking the next arrow in the lower right corner, you will be taken to the prime screen to confirm that the priming process has been done properly. The 4 balloons have air pressure in them, they are inflated slightly, and you can confirm by tapping the prime button. The next screen describes the proper insertion of the catheter into the patient. There is an illustration at the bottom of the screen depicting the letter P as it appears on the posterior side of the catheter. It is now important to lightly press on each of the 4 anal canal balloons on the distal end of the catheter to verify that they have air pressure and are inflated. There are 4 anal canal measurement balloons. There's one located on the posterior side, one on the anterior side, one on the left, and one on the right. Each one of these represents an independent channel and takes their own measurement. The graphic on the screen indicates that the orientation requires that the P be oriented facing the spine. The A should be oriented forward on the patient, and the left and right will be corresponding to the patient's left and right arms. The instructions remind you to lubricate the distal end of the catheter device and instruct the patient to relax. Utilize a standard lubricant to the distal end, the rectal balloon, and the 4 anal canal balloons. The catheter features a soft, flexible tip, but has enough strength and firmness to be inserted without the use of your finger. Gently insert the catheter through the sphincter to the point where you would be located to the 0 location on the catheter. As the graphic shows, there are indicator lines on the catheter. They start at 0, then go to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. With a typical patient, the 4 anal canal balloons should be just inside the anal verge at catheter position 0. Anal canals range between 20 millimeters and 45 millimeters in length. At this time, if you also choose to measure rectal pressures, which is also part of the mCompass system, you will need to prime the rectal balloon. This is done by taking the provided 60 cc syringe, filling to the 60 cc mark, and connecting it to the open port on the 4-way stopcock. Then turn the stopcock knob so that it's now open to all 3 channels. Prime the rectal balloon with the 10 cc's of air. At that time, once you're holding it with the 10 cc's of air, turn the stopcock so that it's now just communicating between the fob and the rectal balloon. 10 cc's of air are needed because this is an air-charged manometry catheter, and the air is used to transfer the pressure levels back to the pressure sensors in the portable manometer. Without having any air in the system, you would not be able to take a rectal pressure. During the implementation of the device, you will be inflating and deflating the rectal balloon. You must always maintain 10 cc's of air in that rectal balloon to maintain the ability to take pressure. Once you have connected the rectal balloon and it's inflated, tapping the next arrow in the lower right corner of the screen will take you to the testing area. You are now ready to begin the resting test. The resting test is designed to get an initial reading on the patient in the resting position. It takes the pressure of the anal sphincter muscles at rest, at the posterior, anterior, left and right locations. The graphic displays the posterior, the left, the anterior, and the right. The graphic shows the individual balloon's position as they relate to the patient. Step-by-step directions are located at the top of the screen. Begin the resting test by telling the patient to relax, and you need to enter the catheter position and tap Run and pause. The catheter position is located down on the bottom of the screen. Tap Location, start at 0, and you can select locations 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. The graphic next to the numbers displays the depth of the catheter insertion. Warning indicators are at location 3, 4, and 5, because at that point you are generally past the standard anatomy of a patient, and the catheter position would extend into the rectum. For this example, we'll select location 0, which is just inside the anal verge. Tap the catheter position and verify that it's at 0. Tap the Run button in the lower part of the screen, and this will begin the test. On this test, a standard 20-second countdown will be displayed. You'll see a countdown clock at the bottom of the screen. There is also a pause button or a restart button that you can use at any time to stop or start the test. After 20 seconds, the resting test will automatically send you to the next test, which is called the squeeze test. If for any reason you need to redo a resting test, you can simply tap the resting icon and restart. You will need to select the catheter position again and then redo the resting test. The purpose of the resting test is to get a baseline reading of the posterior, anterior, left, and right functions of the patient. The next test is called the squeeze test. As the name suggests, the patient is instructed to squeeze, as if holding in a bowel movement. Readings will be taken from the posterior, left, anterior, and right positions. Confirm the catheter position by tapping the catheter button again. In this example, we are still at position 0 on the patient, so tap that button. You will see a 5-second delay before the Run button comes up. The 5-second delay allows the mCompass to take an initial reading before the patient begins their squeeze. Each squeeze should last for 20 seconds, and then there is a 1-minute wait between each squeeze. The system is capable of handling up to 5 different squeeze tests at each catheter position. Most patients will do 1 to 3. When the patient is ready, tap the Run button. Then instruct the patient to squeeze. Pressure is being applied to the balloons by their squeeze. Encourage the patient to continuously squeeze as long as they can through the 20-second countdown. Once the countdown hits 0, instruct the patient to stop squeezing and relax. The standard protocol says to wait 1 minute between squeezes. If you choose to start another squeeze test prior to a 1-minute waiting period, the system requires at least 20 seconds before you can enter the catheter position to restart. You'll notice that when the counter is at 40 seconds, you'll be able to enter the catheter position, and then 5 seconds later, the initialization reading will appear to do the Run position again. The timer indicates that the patient has now rested for 30 seconds. Tap the Location button of the catheter again. This takes the initial reading for 5 seconds. The Run button will activate again, and another test can be initiated. Again, instruct the patient to sustain their squeeze for the full 20-second period. It's important to note that if something occurs during the squeeze test, such as the patient coughs, this may be entered in notations and will be attached to that test. The notes function can be found down in the lower corner of the screen. In this example, we will enter that the patient coughed during the test, and that will now be recorded in the history of her test. Tap OK to confirm. Notes can be added to any of the 6 tests at any time to assist in remembering specifics about each test conducted. A third test is conducted in the same manner. The catheter position is entered, confirming that you are still in position 0. A 5-second initialization will occur. Then tap the Run Test button. Again, instruct the patient to squeeze and hold it for the full 20 seconds. As they squeeze, measurements of the anal canal pressures are taken in 4 locations. After the 20 seconds is completed, instruct the patient to relax and rest. You can perform as many as 5 of these tests. Most clinicians do 1 to 3. When completed, tap the Next Test button and you will proceed to the next test, called the Expel Empty test. This test entails instructing the patient to simulate trying to expel a bowel movement. It's described as an Expel Empty test as it is done with an empty rectal balloon. The balloon is already primed with 10 cc's of air. That is considered the empty position. The test is started by first verifying that you are in the catheter position. If you haven't relocated the patient, it will still be at position 0. Enter the catheter position number. It will then take the 5-second initialization reading and confirm that the system is ready. Then simply tap the Run button. As the patient expels, you will be getting anal canal measurements as well as rectal pressures. It is also a 20-second test, and when completed, it will automatically go to the Expel Full test. The Expel Full test asks the patient to simulate expelling a bowel movement with a full rectal balloon. The industry standard is a volume of 50 cc's of air. At this time, turn the valve control on the 4-way stopcock so it's open to 3 channels and inflate 50 cc's of air into the rectal balloon. Once you've reached 50 cc's, turn the stopcock back and close it so it's only communicating between the manometer fob and the catheter. To begin the test, instruct the patient to bear down, as if they're defecating. Tap the catheter position, as well as verifying that 50 cc's of air have inflated the balloon. If the patient feels too much pain at 50 cc's, you can reduce the air in the balloon to 30 cc's, although it's important to remember that this needs to be indicated on the up and down arrows. Once the balloon location is verified, it will display the size of the volume of the balloon as well as the diameter. It will do a 5-second initialization reading, and then the test will start when you tap the Run button. Again, this is another 20-second test. The data will display the patient simulating defecation with a full rectal balloon. You will be getting rectal balloon pressures along with the 4 anal canal pressures as the data is collected. At the end of the 20 seconds, it will advance to the next test. At this time, it is important to remove the 50 cc's of air from the balloon. Turn the stopcock to remove the 50 cc's of air, and then turn the stopcock back so it communicates only between the fob and the catheter. Remember to keep the 10 initial cc's of air in the rectal balloon. If there is no air in the balloon, proper pressure readings will not be attained during future tests. If you see that pressure readings are not being registered and you see mostly blue indications, stop the test. Inject 10 cc's of air to get an initial reading, and then the rectal balloon will once again be able to register pressures. The next test that's standard in the protocol is called the sensation test. The sensation test is going through the process of incrementally inflating the rectal balloon while the patient provides feedback as to the level at which they feel the sensation of simulated bowel. It starts out with sensation, which is when they feel a level of bowel. Then as the balloon inflates, it monitors desire to defecate. Then it moves to urgency, which is when the patient feels an urgent need to defecate. The last measurement is when the patient is experiencing pain. All 4 of these are used to generate a rectal compliance curve at the end of the study. It uses the previous test location. In our earlier example test, we used location 0, so it will automatically be located in this position. You will see that the Run indicator is already on. You will also notice that up on the right side of the screen, the balloon inflation level can be seen. This is to monitor the inflation amount during the test, as the patient indicates the level of either sensation, desire, urgency, or pain. The test is started by tapping the Run button. As the test begins, the balloon is inflated with the 60 cc syringe by turning the stopcock. And as pressure increases, the balloon size is expanding. When the patient first notices a sensation, tap the sensation icon on the screen and enter the level of inflation. In this example, it would be at the 30 cc level. You will notice that the cc volume has put up 30 cc's, and also at this location, you will notice the size of the balloon is indicated. Now inflate the balloon until the patient gives you the sensation of desire. Now the balloon has increased inflation. the patient will state that they have the desire to defecate. Tap the desire icon and enter the inflation level, in this case 50 cc's. As testing continues, the next measurement is urgency. It's important to remember that at any time, if you need to reinflate the 60 cc syringe with air, turn the stopcock indicator so it shuts off that port. You can then take the syringe off, reload with air, and attach to add more. As you increase the level of inflation, the patient will begin to sense the level of urgency, that they have to go at this point. Tap the urgency button and enter the amount of air at that moment. In this case, it would be 70 cc's of air. Enter the amount and verify. Continue to carefully inflate until the patient registers the sensation of pain. Once you get to that location, enter the level of inflation. In this example, it would be 100 cc's of air. Tap Enter. At this time, the test is completed. It is important that you remove the pressure that you put in. If you put in a total of 100 cc's of air, you would need to remove 100 cc's of air. It is very important to maintain the initial priming of 10 cc's of air. Going forward in testing, if you notice that you are not getting a rectal balloon reading, stop the test. Increase the pressure of the rectal balloon with 10 cc's of air and resume testing. The last of the 6 standard protocol tests is called the exhale test. And the exhale test is asking the patient to expel a simulated bowel movement while blowing into a party balloon. You may ask the patient to simply exhale their breath, or the patient could simulate a cough. But the best results can be achieved with exhalation into a party balloon. Once again, verify the location of the catheter. If the position has not changed, tap Enter, and then tap the Run Test button. This is a standard 20-second test where you will get the rectal pressures as well as the 4 anal canal pressures. The test will proceed until its completion, at which point it will automatically go to the final phase, the review screen. This screen will generate every test that you have completed. The tests are arranged in the order in which they were conducted. This test is done in a graphic with colors. There is a symbol down at the bottom that shows you what the pressures are in millimeters of mercury. Again, you can add notes at any point in time. You can also change to a line chart at any point. And you will see the same information in a different presentation. You can go back to a bar chart by tapping that icon. If you choose to zoom a particular area of the test, all you have to do is use the pointer pen, touch the screen, and drag it up to a location, and it will zoom to that particular screen to give you more detail. And you can continue to do that to get very high-resolution detail if you choose to. This screen depicts 15 seconds of the actual squeeze test. To return back to a non-zoom screen, the pointer pen has a button. Press, click, and then tap the screen. The unzoom icon will take you back to the original screen. This works both in the line chart screen as well as with the bar chart screen. At this point, you can immediately go into a report by tapping the Report button to see the standard anal rectal manometry report that's used in the industry. You can also go back and repeat a test. In our example, we repeat a squeeze test, as our patient had coughed during squeeze 2, so that test is repeated. At this time, you would simply repeat all the steps for the squeeze test. In this case, it will be labeled at squeeze 4, and when the 20 seconds is done, it will automatically go to the next test. When the test is complete, tap the Next Test button. In our example, this was the only test repeated. When you tap the Review screen, it reveals that the squeeze test has been added, now located chronologically at the far right side of the screen. And in this case, since the patient coughed during the second squeeze test, you would not want to include that information in the calculations. So you may uncheck that particular squeeze test by tapping the check box on top of it. Confirm that the test is unchecked when it goes from light gray to dark gray in this area. And now the system will use squeeze 1, squeeze 3, and squeeze 4 to do the calculations in the squeeze portion of the test. If you did choose to use squeeze 2 in the testing, simply recheck the box and it will be included. So in our example, squeeze 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be used in the calculation. If you don't wish to use the test, you may remove it from the calculation. This can be done with any of the tests. You can uncheck and recheck and redo any test at any time by going back and by tapping any one of the icons along the side and redo a test. And once you've redone all the testing, tap the review screen, and then the data will be there again, now updated. Now you can call up the report screen, which will generate the standard anal rectal manometry report that's used in the industry. It starts off with a summary page, which gives the patient's name, the patient ID, the gender, their date of birth, the physician, the clinician that's doing the test, the referring physician, and the examination date. It also gives you a summary of each of the 6 tests that you have just completed. In this case, you see the resting test, which shows the anal mean and the anal max during the test. You would expect those to be low because the patient isn't squeezing at that point. The next test is squeeze test. It is again showing anal mean and anal max pressure received, and the squeeze duration average that the patient did during the test. You have the expel empty test, which is the rectal pressure, and that's showing the gradient in millimeters, and it has the anal canal pressure and the anal canal rectal gradient in millimeters of mercury, which is the difference between the two numbers. And then you have the expel full, which is the rectal pressure, the anal pressure, and then the anal rectal gradient. And then you have the sensation test, which gives you the rectal capacity, which in this case, the patient felt pain at 100 cc's, so it indicates 100. You also have the rare calculation. In this case, it was absent. And then you have the rectal balloon volume at rare, and last you have the exhale anal mean and anal max. You also have a pull-down menu on the side of the screen, where you can move down to see multiple pages. Next on the screen is the rectal compliance curve. At this point in the sensation test, you're registering sensation, desire, urgency, and pain. It also shows indications down on the screen at this location, and it also adds notes. If you were to forward this report for interpretation, or if you added interpretation, there would be an interpretation screen where those comments would be added to this particular screen. Continuing down, you will see the summary page. Then the next pages are showing the raw data. You will see the actual resting test, along with the curve that goes along with that. You will see both the bar and the line chart. You have each individual squeeze test, which are being displayed, along with the bar and the line chart. And then you will see a series of pages that will show all the data. The resting test, both the catheter depth location, the posterior max, the left max, the anterior max reading, the right max reading, the posterior mean, the left mean, the anterior mean, and the right mean, and then the average between the two of them. And it does this for all the tests conducted. This has more detail than on a summary page, so you get each individual quadrant of the test in numbers as it goes through the test, in addition to being able to see it graphically on the other pages that precede that. At this time, the file is automatically saved. But if you choose to save it in a different name format, you can tap Save File. It will then come up with your Documents directory, and as you notice, it preloads it with the patient's name, ID, the date of the test, and then you can save the report. You can also print the report from this screen. This is a fully functioning Windows tablet PC. It can be set through your IT group to function as any standard PC would in your clinic, and that can also be done at this time. There is inherent flexibility in the mCompass software. If you see data in the final results that suggest you need to repeat or feel that it wasn't correct, you can tap the back button again and repeat any test at any time. Once you do repeat that test, tap the review screen. Choose which one you want to have in the calculations as shown earlier. And when you tap the report again, it would generate a new report. And that would be the one that you could save again if you choose. In this example, if you wanted to save the file after you make the change, you could add a denotation of another version. Save that version as well. This is an overview of the full rectal manometry test. When you've completed your testing, tap the Log Out button. It will verify that you want to log out and return you to the opening screen. Now we will review the report section. The View Report is a section that can be done by anyone who has password authority. It can be done by the administrator or users, or it can be done for the interpretation of a report that may have been emailed and encrypted to you. You will need to have authority to use this. Enter your password and log in. It will bring you up to the View Report. The reports are put in chronological order, the most recent at the top, and older reports would be at the bottom. You can scroll down to review the full list. The reports that you're seeing in this Select Report menu are the reports that are resident on the memory storage of the tablet PC. If you choose to see a test, like the one we've been working with in our previous examples, we'll identify that one by highlighting it and then hit View Report. At that time, you're going to get the report that contains all the information available, the full review screen, and the final report. You're not able to change the data at this time, but you are able to add interpretation notes if you choose to do so. You can zoom in if you want to zoom a particular area, just like you did when you were doing the original test. The interpreter can also zoom in to see the same level of detail. They can also change to a bar chart if they desire, in addition to zooming in. They can also see the PDF version of the final report. Again, they will not be able to change any of the raw data or the calculations when doing a review of the screen. At this point, if you're done with that test and you want to go back and see another test, all you have to do is keep going back. And now you'll be back into the Select Report and ready to choose any other report that you'd like to review. If it happens to be a report that's been either emailed to you in encrypted form or is in a different folder than the one that's standard on the tablet PC, for example, the file is on a shared server, then you hit Select File, and then it goes to the standard Windows library, where you can find the folder that contains that particular test. You can pick up that test and highlight it and hit Open. It will load into the open space. Tap View Report and up comes that report from that particular file. Zoom into selected parts of the data at any time. Again, you can add notes, but you cannot change the data in the report. If you need to add a note or impression to a file, you want to make sure that you save the file when you're in that section. In this example, we would tap View Report and the report will be generated. You may at this time add your note or impression to the report. For this example, we will simply state that the patient has a condition. Once you've added your note, tap the OK button. Now when you view the report, you'll see that your notes will appear at the bottom of the screen in the Notes section. If you choose to save that file, use an appropriate naming for the file, such as with the individual's name who's added the comments. Now it's a completely separate file with the new interpretation notes on the bottom. You can always tap back and go back to that file management screen at any time. This is also the way you can save specific files from your tablet PC. If you were to back up files to a server, you can select the files and identify them. You can also move or copy files using the standard Windows function. If you log out of the system, you will see that you will go into the standard Windows screen and be able to utilize all the standard functions that are included in the Windows 7 or Windows 8 system. If you have Microsoft Office loaded, you would be able to load those files as well. Again, it's a fully functioning tablet PC that has wireless interconnectivity. The tablet PC has an optional docking station, so you can connect it through hardwire and use a separate keyboard and mouse if you choose to do that versus the pointer pen. It also has built-in resident memory that can be utilized in the system. It has Bluetooth to communicate with our wireless manometer fob, and it also has Wi-Fi, so if you happen to be at a remote location, you can connect to the internet via Wi-Fi.